Well, I'm so delighted to be joined by the amazing Michael Daugherty. I've been such a fan of your music for so long, and in a sense, this is really a dream come true. I remember really early on in my career doing a concert with the National Symphony and doing your Route 66, and that was kind of my first encounter with your music. But I think I really
Hmm.
fell in love with it when I worked with my good friend Zool Bailey on Tales of Hemingway, that incredible cello concerto that won the Grammy. And now here I am getting a chance to bring this just amazing and massive work to life that you've written for the Santa Rosa Symphony. So, Michael, just so glad that you are a part of our season, and thank you so much for this incredible work and a work that is going to be a piece about us and where we live in our community. And I know that's just going to mean so much to everyone here.
Well,
So,
it's great to be here. Yeah, I was going to say it's great to be here, and I really enjoyed coming last May, a year ago, to not only meet you but to drive around Sonoma Valley and to get ideas for this particular work.
yeah, give
Hmm.
us a little more background. To be honest, I can't remember if we started thinking that it was going to be a piece about Sonoma. Maybe you can give a little background on kind of your journey in starting this piece and kind of those early influences.
Well, sure. I mean, for any piece I write, I have to have a inspiration and a narrative, so to speak. And when I came there and spent some time not only with you but just driving around Sonoma Valley, I picked up ideas and like I've always been a fan of road trips. So Route 66 is an example, but it meant many of my pieces are inspired by places I've been to and so forth. Uh, you know, Many composers did that. Like Mendelssohn wrote pieces about his trip to Scotland, and other composers about when they went to Italy or something. So it's not unusual to do that. One of the things that struck me is the drive to, I think it was Independence, California, and then you go over the hill and you come down to Bodega Bay, and then as I'm driving there, there's a sign that says the Birds Cafe, and I thought, wait a minute, that's is this where Hitchcock filmed The Birds? Which I've always been a fan of Hitchcock, and I thought that's great because this gave me a chance to kind of riff off of Hitchcock. So that was one thing I found, and then of course the beautiful Pacific Ocean, which I'm a huge fan of, the fog and that so forth. Just uh, the experience of that, just gave me ideas. And then also finally visited the redwood trees, in the area. These massive trees that are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And then finally visiting the Jack London State Park, and his house, and learning about that he was a big advocate of sustainable farming and really into the environment, really before many people were thinking about it. And so about our, the whole issue about the climate, and thinking about climate change and nature and how we have to protect it, which Jack London was really into. And also he wrote Call of the Wild, which is a great title. So I decided to use that title for the last movement. So putting it all together, that's how the piece came about from the inspirational standpoint.
That's fantastic. I also kind of love the fact that, I mean, 2018 was when I started here. So I feel like your knowing that we were going to do this piece has inspired me to get out more and get to the outdoors and experience, everything that's in Sonoma County, because it is so much more diverse than you'd expect in just, a single county. And I think I
Yes,
love
that's
how you've
true.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, I love how you've really brought that out in this piece. If you don't mind me just kind of dialing in a little bit, I'm very curious because uh, your music is so overtly programmatic. It draws its influences, from our world, from our lives. And at the same time, though, I always feel like it doesn't, your music doesn't hit you over the head with it. It still sounds like a piece of music. It has form, it has shape. It's not just like, oh, I hear birds, I'm going to put birds in my music. I sort of wonder, do you have a process where you go from something like redwood trees to inspiration for music? Is it something you think about? Is it something that it's more like an emotion, it's a feeling, it's an idea that you're trying to convey? How do you get from something that's so physical to then a really true piece of music that could stand on its own?
Well, that's kind of the mystery. How do you go from the inspiration to the actual, whether you're writing a poem, a book, a piece of music, whatever. That's kind of the mystery. But for me, when I visited the redwood forest in Sonoma County, I was there. We were there, my wife and I, for probably 2 or 3 hours. I also took lots of photos wherever I go. So I took a lot of photographs, close up of the trees, of the bark, of whatever. And the first thing that came to mind was a clarinet. Don't ask me why. It starts out with a clarinet solo. But also thought, it'd be something as far as the texture is the most simple and transparent of the movements, kind of like. And then I was thinking of an air on the redwoods, and then I thought, well, these trees are older than Air on the G String by J.S. Bach. And I thought, gee, it'd be interesting if there's some way I could combine those two pieces. So the piece starts out, I wrote it like a tune, tuned to the redwood, so to speak, with the harp and the clarinet, and then more counterpoint comes in and so forth. And then it morphs into Air and the G String occasionally. And I thought, wow, it's like, amazing how like it works.
Mm.
It's a very poignant moment. So that's the kind of go redwoods to the sounds, and then to thinking about extra things like Bach, kind of put it all together. And that's how that piece came about for that movement.
I love it. It takes such a surprising turn in that sense that, yeah, we wouldn't automatically, I guess we as listeners wouldn't expect to see Redwood's Bach, and yet, you tie
Yeah.
these two things together so brilliantly.
Well, I think too that when you hear the Bach, we think of that as really old music, and it is, 1740 or something. And then when you think that those trees are even significantly older than that, it kind of helps us realize how old those trees really are. So.
Yeah, yeah. And then, one other perhaps a little more detailed question, but there aren't as much as I know you write for a lot of different ensembles, there aren't a lot of composers that write so prolifically for orchestra. And I was
Mhm.
just sort of curious about that process because we don't, I guess the idea of a symphonic composer is not quite as prevalent now as it might have been, say, 100 years ago. And I was just curious about your approach to the orchestra. I mean, you bring so much out of it, both in kind of highlighting individual instruments, which you've talked a little bit about in this piece, but also, of course, this piece is going to have epic climaxes. I mean, I could tell just looking at the score that we're going to be, raising the roof at the Green Music Center. How do you
Mhm.
think about the use of the orchestra, both I guess in its smallest, most intimate forms, and then in these gigantic swells of sound?
Well, probably my two main composers that I think about are Gustav Mahler and Igor Stravinsky, those two. And Mahler, was amazing because he moves between these huge gargantuan moments to more chamber music like moments, very intimate moments to very bombastic, kind of majestic moments. So I suppose that's been an influence. And I also think about the players. I mean, I always work with instruments when I'm writing. So I have at home, I have a Apple computer with a very large monitor. I use Sibelius, the music notation program. I have a piano next to me. I get ideas. I go, I enter it right to the full score, and I'm working there. But then after I've written a large portion of music, I'll hire a violin player to come over, and I print out the violin part, and they play along with the computer playing the piece. And as I hear real instruments play, I'll bring an English horn over, I'll bring a trumpet player over, whatever. So I'm thinking about the instruments, and I think of each instrument as being important. And I want to give them, a moment to shine in the piece. So as I'm writing, I'm always thinking about, what's it like to be the viola player or the second oboe player or the xylophone player. So I put myself in their shoes, so to speak, when I'm writing. And so it's kind of a collaborative process with the instruments, really. And also, I just love the orchestra. I go to concerts all the time. I still study scores, and I love orchestra and band too. I've written quite a few works for wind ensemble, but I think I like large groups of musicians together because it's a collaboration, and it's just a great experience to be with so many different kinds of people.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I think one of the really, again, something that doesn't happen as often as I think it should is audiences getting to experience a brand new work. And
Mhm.
actually, this season in Santa Rosa is very unique, a little bit because COVID pushed some things around, but we have four major world premieres all within one season, and they've all been incredibly different. Everything from a klezmer clarinet concerto to some very experimental stuff. And I guess what I've kind of talked about with each composer, what's been interesting to hear is sort of how they maybe, I don't know if hope is the right word, but kind of what their thoughts are on how they would like an audience to experience their work. I was just sort of curious, about the experience you want to bring to an audience and any thoughts you have, because I think sometimes audiences are nervous. Maybe they won't understand it enough, or they won't know what to listen to, or it'll just be too much to handle. And of course, this used to be very normal back in the day, and I'm trying to make it normal again. But sort of
Mhm.
wondering your thoughts on how you would like an audience to approach a new piece, or in particular this piece.
Well, gee, I mean, just to have, open ears and to, you know, what do you listen for if you don't know a lot about music? One of the things you could do is to look at what instruments are playing, like identify, oh, there's a clarinet, there's a bassoon, there's a trumpet. That's one way to listen to a piece. Just listen to the sounds and who's doing what. Um, but again, there's kind of a mystery to it. There's just the particular sound of the orchestra. There's just this magical sound, and I when I'm listening to my own music, like let's say I've composed a movement, and it's I have a MIDI version, a computer version, of the instruments playing it. I'll make an MP3, and then I'll drive when I'm driving around town or I'm riding my bicycle or whatever. I'll play the MP3 and I'll listen to it over and over again. Of, let's say, the 5-minute movement I've listened to, and I'm trying to listen to it as though I've never heard it before. It's the first time. Because if you listen to something over and over and over again, then you kind of predict, you kind of know what's going on. But I try to think about it, if this is the first time I'm hearing the piece. So it has to work in different levels. It has to work in a level that for the first time you hear it, you can come how the piece invites you in. At the same time, there has to be enough depth and information. You can go back to it two or three or four times. That's why certain films, like The Godfather, you can go back and watch that film over and over again because there's so much detail, so much depth in the piece, and great works of music. You can hear a symphony of Beethoven, Mahler, or whatever, Stravinsky, or a piece of, a jazz piece, John Coltrane, Ellington, whatever, these great musics. You can go back and listen to them, and because there's so much depth to it. So you want to write it so there's immediacy to the piece. At the same time, there's enough depth and information that you can go back to it a second time. So it's kind of it's balancing out those things of complexity, yet inviting you in and inviting different kinds of people in, people who don't know music and people who do know music. So I'm putting myself in all those shoes and thinking about that as I'm composing.
I love that so much. And I think, one of the great things about, having you once again, come out to Santa Rosa and be a part of the process of bringing this piece to life, but then also to have our audience getting to meet you, getting to know you. Because I think, again, sometimes the daunting thing about new music is forgetting that there's a face behind it, and there's someone who's inspired by the same things we are, that's curious about all the same things we are, and you happen to channel them into this amazing music. And I think in that sense, I know this will be so much fun, because all the times that I've heard one of your pieces for the first time, it's really just a box of treasures, because it's things that you're so influenced and enjoy so many different things in our world, and they're the same things that all of us experience, and they just happen to come through in this music. And I can't wait for this piece, because of course it's about our community, it's about the nature around us, it's about so many things that we know here, and it's just truly special to be able to do this with you.
Here's the cover of the score, which is one of the photographs I took. It's one of the forests near, it's not the one everybody goes to, the one that was closed. And I went to another forest, which is not normally, it's near Independence, kind of in an isolated area. I can't remember what it was called, but that's where I went to visit the redwood trees. But, also, I also wanted to write a piece that just, a piece that has legs. So even though it's inspired by Sonoma County, there's so many things that are universal in thinking about Sonoma. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock, his films have an international reach, for example. The redwood trees are something that are magical, that move beyond Sonoma Valley to California and so forth. The Pacific Ocean, the fog, that's something that relates to many different parts of the world. And and then the last woman thinking about the environment and so forth. And that's very dramatic. and turbulent moments, but very lovely moments and very rhythmic moments and so forth. So, you try to write a piece that works, and again, on different levels. It can work for the local community, but also hopefully it'll be something that will, be universal and can be played, in Korea or whatever, and still make an impact.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, Michael, can't wait to welcome you out to Santa Rosa. For everyone watching this, these are not concerts you're going to want to miss. They are just going to be incredible. So much amazing music, but in particular, this is a really special moment for us to get to work with Michael and bring one of your new incredible pieces to life. So, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon out here.
All right. Looking forward to it.